So I've been working on a brand new game in Unity here, and one of the things that was really giving me trouble early on was the textures. So originally, well, let me paint the scene for you here. So basically, here we are, we're standing on the road. Back in the distance is going to be some like concert venue, which we're going to go to, and we come from the street. And so originally the textures looked like this. So if I change this dirt to this one and this to this one, they're both like images taken from the real world. And if I turn the lights on, you can see them a little better. It just is so ugly and terrible. I mean, it just really is bad. And for a long time, I didn't really know what was going on here because I don't really have any. I don't really have any art skills, so I didn't really know what the heck was what to do to fix it. And what I eventually did was I hand drew the textures, and it turned out completely changing the feel of the game. So let me know if you agree. Doesn't this just feel so much more like warm and inviting? And I think there's something about the way the human brain works. You can like feel when the human hands have worked on it. It feels like a hug almost just to look at. And you know, like I said, I have no art skills. So how did I do this? I got this new program called Krita, which is kind of like just like a standard art program, but it's free. It's kind of like Blender, open source and whatnot. And so I want to show you how you can do this because this is it's not that hard to do, and it makes a pretty big difference in the feel. So if I'm gonna go to a new image, right? Sure. And suppose you got this, and you have this, right? So if I open this up, what you can do is you can grab from all these different brushes here. So okay, I think the reason why people think their art stinks, right, is because they grab this and they grab like the brightest red possible, and they're like, "Oh, that's not that looks terrible." Or like they go here and they go brown. Oh, I'm making dirt. That's not dirt. That's brown. And so that's what I was doing, and you can kind of see it here. I saved all of my attempts, and you can see the improvement. So if I make this bigger on the right side here, my first attempt looked like this. This was what I thought would be dirt texture. I had just discovered this paintbrushy tool thing, which I think was like this one. Yeah, so they're all different, as you can see. And I was like, oh man, I'm not cut out for this. Screw this. I'm just going to give up and just use the real textures. I almost didn't even try. But then I kept going, and I kept going, changed the saturation a little bit, and I kept going. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we added some roughness. Changed the saturation again. I think I redid it. Added grass. I experimented with adding noise. That didn't really work, again, because it's not human. It feels weird. If I flick back and forth, you can kind of just see some noise being added. And then I added some like moose tracks or something. And then finally a little two parallel lines where the tires of the car would go. And so I just was like, here's some of the tips that while I was experimenting, I came up with. First of all, if you have a single color anywhere, it looks terrible because nothing in the real world is one color. Come up here to the color picker and just kind of push it over here a little bit and then go over it again. And then push it a little bit and go over it again. And now we're creating a little bit of depth here. I don't know what exactly this is, but you see what I'm getting at. And then you can experiment with the texture. So now you take this thing and you take this thing and you can push the colors around. And so if all you ever use is this tool, you're never going to get you might get the colors right, but you're never going to get the textures right. And that's what all these brushes come from. So for example, right, if we look at the jump from here to here was a really big improvement because I figured out that if I could just take this one, I think, and just kind of, oh, well, that's good one. Remember that one. That's important. If I take like this one and I just kind of tap it, I wish I remembered which one it was. If I take this, let's say it's this one. Yeah, this looks right. And then I bring it into like the darker color and I kind of tap it around. Now it kind of looks like, I don't know, like a coffee sort of stain or something. Each brush, I don't know if I'm saying, it sounds like I'm saying the same thing. It sounds like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but basically like the brush allows your imagination to fill in the gaps a little bit better as to what the thing you're trying to draw actually represents. So, like, obviously, this is in the real world a paintbrush, but because of the texture, you could look at that and say, "Oh, it's a coffee stain." You know, that's what I'm trying to say. So I did this for this dirt texture, and I think it made a big improvement. And then I did the same thing for the street. So if I open up the street, like I said before, nothing is truly one color. So I started with, I sampled, the original texture was this one. Oh, I should say this as well. The way you get your colors is from the image. So if I come in here, I can hold control and sample a color here. And now if I go to another new one, usually what I'll do is I'll paint the entire thing one color. And then what I did for the road, you'll notice that there's this like kind of streakiness going through where the tires go over it a lot. And so in this one, I took a slightly lighter color. And then I took probably like one of these watercolory things. That's too big. And I kind of just went like this. I don't think this was, I think I got the brush wrong again. But you see how like now this feels more like a road and less like, I don't know, blank, empty, void, nothingness. And then I took, to make the paint lines, this one's kind of easy because, you know, you're working with paint brushes and the yellow is literally paint. I think I zoomed into the line, I grabbed this color, and then I go to probably one of these inkier ones like this, and I went straight across. Maybe it was this one? Yeah, maybe that was it. And it looks like kind of worn down, painted street lines, whatever they're called. And I did the same thing over here. And you know, through this process, you can actually, you know, it's really not that difficult to figure out, you know, okay, well this needs to look a little bit better, so maybe let me just experiment with this brush and this color and this technique, and eventually, you know, your eyes will just trust your eyes, and when you get to, eventually you'll get something you're satisfied with. So like I said, you know, you start with this and you work your way eventually to this. Another cool trick I discovered is that, you know, again, like I said, nothing is ever one color. So if I take this, and what I did was, I was like, okay, a sidewalk square is shaped like a square, duh. And then in between each square is like a little crack. So clearly it must be like a shadow. So I had the sidewalk down here and I was drawing like this. And I was like, oh, that looks really awful. That really does not look good. So you can see what I did was I figured out that actually the way that light works, you go like this, and suddenly you have something that's way more visually interesting. And I could actually explain like what's going on here. The reason why this looks so much better is because this is actually correct. Even though there is like a dip, you think it's dark in there. Let me actually hop into Blender and show you what I'm talking about. If I have a item, right, and it's got this bumpiness to it, it's not the depth. Like, I have to make this in 3D. I have to show you. I can talk all day, but unless I do this, I'm not gonna communicate this properly. So let me quickly make a sidewalk tile here. That's good. Apply, and then let me, make an array so I can have a bunch of them. So we're gonna be walking this way. Okay. So now, if we look closely here, I know this is like turning into an art lesson. It's supposed to be about textures. If I take a light, turn the lights down. Rendered, please. Now is not the time to crash. We're in the middle of a video here. Come on, Blender. Kick it up a notch. Oh, no. Okay. Blender has now corrected itself, and here we are. So this represents the sidewalk tile, right? So let me turn up the power a little bit. Maybe that's too much. As you can see, it's shaped with like a little crack going into where the tiles meet each other. And now if I bring the light close, maybe the power is actually too high. Do you see what's going on here. Basically, like the way the light is hitting it, there's always a dark part and a light part for every bump and every crevice. And so, like I don't know if this is like some universal, karma or whatever. They can't have light without dark, literally. You can see like as I bring the light to the left side, it doesn't hit. It only hits the right because it's being blocked by the left. So shadow, light, and then over here. So now if we go back to Krita, this would explain why we need to have two different colors to represent the sidewalk tiles, because the light is hitting from on this side and then not this side. And so your eyes can pick up on that and say, okay, this looks way better. And in the context, of course, it looks great. So now if I turn the lights down, yeah, in context, it looks great. And if I move the camera around, it really does feel like you're in a watercolor or something. So I want to show you some pictures to illustrate why you should do this. So if we go to like maybe Red Dead Redemption, right? Screenshot. No one's going to argue with you that this game is gorgeous. Even the first one and the second one. The second one even more so is a better example. The game looks so good. But it doesn't convey a feeling in the same way that, let's say, like a Studio Ghibli background might. Try to ignore the character for a second. You see how there's a certain magic in the way that this feels, and I think it's because of because it's painted, and I think any style brings you into a certain sort of, I don't know, it makes it's a way you can cheat your audience in a way, because you know that like your environment's not really that interesting, like this is not really that cool, but because it's painted, it's like a little off from reality. You feel like, oh yeah, this looks good, but I've seen this on the side of the road driving through Minnesota or some rural part of wherever country you live. But then this is like, I've never seen anything like this before. This is truly, apart from reality. So that's my recommendation. That's what I've been working on for all you people who've been following me for a while. Thanks for sticking around through this for a little bit of a ramble. I wanted to show you this, and hopefully you can apply this lesson in whatever you're working on. See you in the next one.